Good morning, friends. I am Dr. Yogesh Sarode of Jivan Vikas Mahavidyalaya Devgram. I heartily welcome you all in this session. Today, we will learn about the poem To the Autumn by John Keats. In the earlier session, we had seen about the poem, about the poet, theme, central idea of the poem, and had discussed crux of the poem also. In this part, I will particularly focus on the interpretation of the poem and some important aspects. Friends, this poem, To the Autumn, is a ode composed by one of the romantic poets, John Keats. This ode to autumn was published in 1820 in the third volume of poems of John Keats. It is the most satisfying of all the odes in thought and expression. In other words, sometimes the poetic fire dwindles under the pressure of splendor of diction. But in the ode to autumn, from the beginning to the end, matter and manners are superbly blended, and every line carries its noble weight and beauty. The first stanza is a symphony of color, the second, a symphony of movement, and third one is a symphony of sound. The artist shapes the first and the last, and in the midst of the man, the thinker gives its a human significance. Thus, the poem is perfect, sensuous, and uh, it is as if it were its a vital idea giving the poem. Color, movement, and sound are crowded into the exquisite little ode. The glory of the autumn season has nowhere else been more vividly described as in the poem To the Autumn. Its amazing beauty is vividly suggested in a series of pen pictures. The autumn is so colorfully and realistically represented that one ceases to think of it is a mere season and begins to regard it as a human being, subject to and revealing in all the sensations. So, Keats opens his first stanza by addressing autumn, describing its abundance and its intimacy with the sun, with whom autumn ripens fruits and causes the late flowers to bloom. In the second stanza, the speaker describes the figure of autumn as a female goddess, often seen sitting on the granary floor, her hair soft lifted by the wind, and often seen sleeping in the fields or watching a cider press squeezing the juice from apples. In the third stanza, the speaker tells autumn not to wonder where the songs of spring have gone, but instead to listen to her own music. At twilight, the small gnats hum among the river swallows or willow trees lifted and dropped by the wind, and full grown lambs bleat from the hills. Crickets sing, robins whistle from the garden, and swallows, gathering for their coming migration, sing from the skies. So, this is what is the beauty of all the stanzas in the poem. Now, if you come to form of the poem, we find like the Ode on Melancholy to Autumn is also written in a three stanza structure with a variable rhyme scheme. You notice each stanza is 11 lines long, and its organization and rhyme scheme is also compact. each stanza is divided roughly into two parts. In each stanza, the first part is made up of the first four lines of the stanza, and the second part is made up of the last seven lines. So the first part of each stanza follows an ABAB rhyme scheme. The first line rhyming with the third, and the second line rhyming with the fourth. The second part of each stanza is longer and varies in rhyme scheme. The first stanza is arranged as CDE DCCE, and the second and third stanzas are arranged in the manner CDE CDDE. See what is the difference? CDE DCCE, and here CDE CDDE. That is the only difference you find. However, this thematic division is only very general. Now, if you come to theme of the poem, you find in both its form and descriptive surface, To Autumn is one of the simplest of Keats' odes. There is nothing confusing or complex in Keats' poem To the Season of Autumn, with its fruitfulness, its flowers, and the song of its swallows gathering for migration. The extraordinary achievement of this poem lies in its ability to suggest, explore, and develop a rich abundance of themes without ever ruffling its calm, gentle, and lovely description of autumn. Where Ode on Melancholy presents itself a strenuous heroic quest, To Autumn is concerned with much quieter activity of daily observation and appreciation. In this quietude, the gathered themes of the preceding odes find their fullest and most beautiful expression. To Autumn takes up where other odes leave off. Like the others, it shows Keats' speaker paying homage to a particular goddess. In this case, uh, this season of autumn, the selection of this season implicitly takes up the other odes themes of temporality, mortality, and change. Autumn in Keats' ode is a time of warmth and plenty, but it is perched on the brink of winter's desolation. As the bees enjoy latter flowers, the harvest is gathered from the fields. The lambs of spring are now full grown, and in the final line of the poem, the swallows gather for their winter migration. The understated sense of inevitable loss in that final line makes it one of the most moving moments in all of poetry. It can be read as a simple, uncomplaining summation of the entire human condition. Despite the coming chill of winter, the late warmth of autumn provides Keats' speaker with ample beauty to celebrate. To celebrate the cottage and its surroundings in the first stanza, the agrarian haunts of the goddess in the second, and the locales of the natural creatures in the third. Keats' speaker is able to experience these beauties in a sincere and meaningful way because of the lessons he has learned in the previous odes. He is no longer indolent, no longer committed to isolated imagination, no longer attempting to escape the pain of the world through ecstatic rapture. No longer he is frustrated by the attempt to eternalize mortal beauty or subject eternal beauty to time, and no longer able to frame the connection of pleasure and the sorrow of loss only as an imaginary heroic quest. So, to autumn in this poem, the speaker experiences of beauty refers back to earlier odes, but it also recalls wealth of earlier poems. Most importantly, the image of autumn, winnowing and harvesting recalls an earlier Keats poem in which the activity of harvesting is an explicit metaphor for artistic creation. So in his sonnet, when I have fears that I may cease to be, Keats makes this connection directly. So friends, this is what are the literary aspects of the poem. We have seen form, theme and content. Now we'll discuss some important questions or aspects related with this poem. Now one point I always think that is important in this poem is that here we find Keats' attitude towards autumn and nature. This is very important because Keats is a romantic poet. So he must have that feeling towards nature. In this poem, To Autumn, John Keats describes the beauty and pleasure of autumn season. Poet takes immense pleasure in the gradual developments of autumn season. Poet says, autumn is a close blossom friend of maturing sun. Blossom means intimate friend of maturing sun, means sun rising on the top. They both conspire, they both make plan to load and bless fruits and flowers. The vines that run around the thatched house also have ample amounts of grapes on it. The heavy apples bend down the mossed apple tree which is near to the cottage. The season fills the apples with juice. The gourd becomes big and full. Hazel shells are also plump with a sweet kernel. Some flowers are reserved for bees. The bees are filled with honey and the clammy cells are overflowing with sweet honey. The John Keats has been successful in expressing the beauty, the charm, the symphony of autumn in the lap of nature. And from this we find uh, an intimity, nearness in the heart of poem. Second point, which I think is that what particular message does the poet wants to convey uh, through the autumn or autumn season? See, in the first stanza, poet has personified autumn as a human being who is capable to secretly conspire with sun to bring changes in the atmosphere. Also in the second stanza, we see autumn is compared to a lady. The autumn is the time of a transformation between growth of summer and the dormancy of winter. Much of the transformation in the poem occurs between stanzas. For example, in the first stanza, apples, gourds are swelling outwards before they will be plucked. By the second stanza, harvest is already complete or nearly complete, and the ripe apples have been turned into rich, delicious cider. See, in the third stanza also, the setting the sun marks the transformation. Just as the life grows into its highest achievement during the youth, following it comes to the laboring days of middle age and finally old age, indicating the approaching death, maturity towards perfection. This is what the poets wants to convey through this poem also, that whatever cycle of the nature will it be, whether it is of human beings or of nature, it comes to its end, it comes to its maturity, it comes to its fullness, it comes to its growth, and that is the law of nature. Then we find the theme of time in the ode. See, The passage of the time is one of the main themes in the poem. The most common thing in the world is a change, because change is the law of nature. Throughout the poem, Keats tries to show how the time keeps on changing by different passages of time in farming activities. Keats does this by showing different stages of farming, from ripening to harvesting. Then the progression of autumn season is depicted in the three stanza. From its mellow fruitfulness and abundance in the first stanza to its laborious labor in the second stanza, and finally into its gradual demise. Also, parallel to this, Keats illustrate the growing day from morning to afternoon into evening. Just as life grows into its highest achievement during the youth, following it come to the laboring days of middle age and finally old age, indicating the approaching the time or approaching the death. So here, how we find that time is flowing continuously. You cannot make any activity without time, and this is what the moment of time is seen here. Now see, if we concentrate on all these three stanzas once again, well, from structure point of view, we'll see three stanzas differ from each other. We have seen that the poem To Autumn is a poem of three stanzas, each of 11 lines. Three stanzas are structurally and thematically different from each other. In the first four lines of each stanza, they are of ABAB rhyme scheme, following the first lines rhyming with the third and second with the fourth, having a rhythm CDE, DCCE, and in the second and third CDE, CDDE. In the earlier part, in the first four lines, in all throughout three stanzas, it is ABAB. Thematically, the first of stanza, Keats concentrates on the beauty and pleasure of the autumn season. He notes the sights of autumn, ripening grapes and apples, swelling gourds and hazelnuts, and blossoming flowers. In the second stanza, poet is comparing autumn season with a girl who is sitting carelessly on the granary floor. Her hairs are soft lifted by the winnowing wind. It can take a nap in the fields, walk across brooks, or watch the making cider. The last stanza contrasts autumn's sound with those of spring. So, and the last we will see one point here also, theme of ripeness, that is also discernible here in this poem. Theme of ripeness or fruition. See, in the opening lines, he emphasizes the idea that autumn is indeed a season of mellow fruitfulness, a time of year when the natural world swells pregnant with life. Everywhere the trees and plants are with fruit and flowers. The vines also run around the thatched house, have ample number of grapes on it. The heavy apples bend down and the season fills the apples with juice to the core. The gourd becomes big like balloons. Hazel shells are also plump up with a sweet kernel. The buds are filled with honey and the clammy cells are overflowing with sweet honey. Also parallel to this, Keats illustrate the growing day from morning to the afternoon into evening. And just as life grows from youth to middle age and finally to the old age. So here we find the similarity of life and of maturity also. Just like life progresses further, it starts from childhood till old age. In the same way, any fruit which is immatured in the beginning becomes ripened at last. So this is what is the theme of ripeness also is discernible in this poem. So friends, we have discussed all important issues aspects related with this poem. I hope you will understand the poem thoroughly. So thank you. Once again, we'll meet in a new session. Good day.